I know, I said I was bored of the Red Bull drama. Well, not anymore. Because things just got interesting. The junior team begging, screaming, pleading at Christian Horner not to give Isack a go. And all in the midst of another Red Bull junior getting his wings. As Arvid Lindblad secured a special FIA dispensation and a super license, another Red Bull junior, the more likely senior team successor, was making headlines of his own. You may already be aware of my video from a little while ago about how Isack Hadjar should be left well enough alone, not consigned to the firing line. Especially since the senior team has doubled down on Maxo vision again after promising that they wouldn't do that. Look how long that lasted. Thanks, Pierre. Great job and consistency and stability and continuity. Oh no, wait, that is continuity of just relying on Max. But now another voice has spoken up about that, and this comes from the CEO of the other team. Peter Bear, Racing Bull's CEO, aka the Mr. Krabs of the paddock, isn't mincing his words. In Blick, he strongly opposed losing his star driver before the next season's conclusion. So here is what Peter said for your consideration. For heaven's sake, don't take this talent away from us too soon. Isack should get to know the whole business by the end of 2026. Until then, we'll just have to handcuff him. Sure, okay, and you might just dismiss this as casual banter between Bear and Horner that, oh, we know what you're gonna do, but yeah, please don't do it. What can we do? Our hands are tied. But no, this is actually a really interesting message, and even though it's not like he's going to be running out of talent anytime soon, they might even profit from the likes of Lindblad for a bit, but let's not forget, he's got a team of his own to run right now. And the boss of VCARB does not want Red Bull Racing to hurry Isack out the door to the senior team. Bear is arguing that Hajar needs at least 2 seasons to fully grasp the world of Formula 1, be it not just the things to do with the car, but also the commercial side of things, the technical side of things, and the political demands. And by just rushing him in next to Max Verstappen, even though there are many people who claim that Isack could easily do that, and then some people say he has absolutely no weaknesses whatsoever, well, how would we know that? Because just rushing him in next to Max could easily stunt that growth or make it regress somewhat. Just see what happened with Liam. Red Bull really needs to break this cycle of just bringing in youngsters or bringing in other people, expecting them to do just as well as Max, and then get completely shocked that they don't. They either flounder, fade away into the background, or are completely purged. Maybe just hear Bear out, perhaps? And besides, Bear's take is far more grounded than what Nico Rosberg was saying the other day, saying that if Isack Hadjar were to ever get a call up to the Red Bull senior team, then he should just flat out decline it. Well, I'm sorry, Nico, but that is something that realistically Hajar cannot do. They are all contracted via the same group, which allows for all of the driver swaps to happen almost seamlessly. So there is really nothing Isack can do if he gets the call up. If he gets promoted, well then he's gotta get promoted. And it's not like we don't know what Isack thinks about the whole situation. He actually said that he would never refuse the call. He's quite open-minded about it. But then at the same time, he's saying that he is enjoying his time at Racing Bulls, and therefore, if he is actually finding a good platform there, and he's able to find a working environment that allows him to flourish, and he's scoring so many points consistently, then just allow him to enjoy it for another season. We are now at round 9 of the championship, and you look to how many points Racing Bulls has in the Constructors. 28. How many did Racing Bulls have this time last year with 2 proven mainstays of the Red Bull culture, Ricciardo and Tsunoda? 28. So no wonder Peter Bear and Lauren Mickeys want to keep Isack around for another season, because he's bringing them points. They've got their own constructors battle to deal with. They ideally want to be where Franz Tost once said, P5. That was his goal for Toro Rosso, to get them right up there at the top of the midfield. It would just show that their end of the bargain, their part of the workflow, is top-notch. It's about prestige and prize money. And also, it's just a sign that Peter Bear is really learning how Formula 1 works, or at least this ecosphere, because Franz Tost said that ideally, any brand new Formula 1 driver needs at least 3 seasons to get fully up to speed and really start to show what kind of potential they have for the sport. Yes, okay, Hajar getting 2 seasons is a little bit swift than Tost would like, but it's progress. It's definitely progress. That 3rd season, potentially for Isack, would be at Red Bull Racing, just to polish things off that little bit more and yeah, the majority of the work would already have been done. And seeing how Isack's already kicked on within 9 races, just imagine what he can do when he's got 50 races under his belt. Like what Piastri has with 50 races under his belt. Well, 50 plus now. He's now contending for a world championship. Ooh. So if Hajar did step up in 2027, it could be perfect. Even more so if Max is no longer there, but that's for later. But it's not just about sentiment, it's about strategy. Bayer knows star drivers bring money. He hyped Ricciardo's sponsorship appeal for a long time, and for reason. And while Hajar isn't the same draw, his results are beginning to speak louder. His compelling backstory and massive support from the fandom is now backed by what midfield teams value most: points. All of this is helping VCARB regain identity, focus and purpose. Qualities lost amid last year's branding chaos. Because I don't think you need me to tell you that last year, that team was a complete mess. Nobody knew what it was all about. Was it called VCARB, RB, Visa Cash App Racing Bulls, Visa Cash App RB? Even they weren't willing to tell us what they were exactly called. The FIA entry sheet said Racing Bulls SPA. The team would then say, oh, no, we're not called Racing Bulls. No. It's a Visa Cash App RB. We're Visa Cash App RB. And then they're going, oh, no, we're not that. It is Racing Bulls. So, yeah, thanks for gaslighting us, guys. But, okay, yeah, that's all in the past. The team has now rebranded itself and shown us all that it is actually quite a genuine operation. It's a quiet one, a nurturing one, a pastoral one, a team where all of the Red Bull juniors who do go through its doors will be treated kindly and respectfully, and with 2 entities in Bayer and Mekis backing them up to the hilt, without question, with sincerity. An environment which is conducive to, surprise, surprise, nurturing young talent. I mean, you've only got to look at what Liam Lawson's going through right now. He got completely sent through the ringers at Red Bull Racing. He goes down back to Racing Bulls, gets a little bit more time there to clear his head, and he's managed to score some more points. He had his best ever result around Monaco, getting into Q3 as well. And he's showing that he's regaining the confidence that he had last year. He's scrapping it out amongst other drivers and not getting in trouble with the stewards. So amongst the Red Bull ecosphere and the culture, that's fantastic. You're giving it a go and you're not getting wrapped on the knuckles for it. At least not anymore. So I think it's a credit to VCARB's approach. It's getting results because Liam's starting to get back on his feet rather quickly. Put simply though, Bayer's comments really come from the desire for this team to regain its integral part as part of the Red Bull Junior wheelhouse and to regain some understanding with the fans and improve its commercial pool, which I think quite frankly is working like a charm. Not to mention, it's a team that seemingly has a much better strategy plan than it did last year. I can't tell you how many points they lost due to the fact they would make these pit stop calls, which seemed ultimately bizarre. It would compromise the likes of Ricciardo and Tsunoda from scoring points. Arguably, it did happen at the beginning of this year. But the instances of people just going, oh my God, what were they thinking? They are happening fewer than they were in 2024, which is allowing Racing Bulls to be in the position where they are right now, ahead of Haas, ahead of Aston Martin, ahead of Alpine. And all of this around the likes of Isack Hadjar. Within such a short space of time, the team has thankfully found a new focal point after losing Yuki Tsunoda to the senior team. The guy that had been around Faenza for almost the longest in the entire team's history, even back when it was Minardi. So to lose Isack again so soon, it would mean they would have lost their shining, guiding light. Once more, they would need to find another one. I mean, they could maybe focus it around Liam Lawson. Arvid Lindblad will be coming in eventually, so there might be something. But the fact is, though, for Bayer, Hajar is a known quantity. And businessmen, oh, they are all about known quantities. Getting rid of Isack, all that momentum would be gone. And Red Bull would receive a Hajar who only has 24 races of experience under his belt. Sure, it's double than what Liam Lawson had to his name, but it's still not conducive for him to be ready to scrap it up amongst the front-running pack, where Red Bull is really not starting to emulate its contemporaries up there. But even though Isack is a real draw for people and people are really getting behind him, as am I now, I still don't think Hajar is ready to go up against Max Verstappen. Even though he might think that he is ready, there is still things that need to be refined, such as that fan encounter around Monte Carlo. Now, this is not a blot against Isack. I personally think he handled it rather well. And understandably, he was being confronted and he didn't fly off the handle, he didn't shout, he didn't curse, he didn't get pushy. It was all right, but it was clear that it did rattle him. And this was a moment with a singular fan, and it's something that I think Marko and Horner should take note of for potentially a promotion up to the senior team. There needs to be more time for Hajar to hone himself. Again, this is nothing against Isack whatsoever. In fact, quite frankly, his standing with the fandom, I think, improved immeasurably. It made him a draw. It made him sensational. It made him interesting. It turned out to be a positive news story, which helped a lot considering how well he did around the Monaco Grand Prix with P6. He looked like he had fiery passion, something that the fans crave in a sea of racers who many arguably over-commercialise themselves, or have become too cookie-cutter in interviews to the point where they don't really have much of a character. It got people talking. And not in a, oh, Isaac's got a bit of a temper, hasn't he? No, people were talking about Isack in like, hey, Hajar's awesome! But look, VCARB's roadmap is absolutely simple and something that Christian should take quite seriously. Just give Isack 2 whole seasons. Let him learn the circuits properly through various conditions, because you don't get the same exact conditions 2 times in a row. Allow him to help develop the VCARB 03, so that means next year he'll be driving a car which is wholly characterised for himself, and of course adapt to the brand new regulations away from the front lines. You could argue that, yes, the hierarchy could easily change where racing bulls turn out to be rather good. Well, that is neither here or there for now, but there would be far much less exposure at the junior team than there would be at the senior team, because people will be looking to the senior team, and the fact that the Red Bull powertrains is not looking that great, Verstappen's not a fan of these regulations, there'll be people waiting with bated breath to see how Red Bull flounder. Do you really want Hajar up there at that moment when it does happen? Or would you rather wait just one more year as Red Bull are in the rebuilding phase, and then Isack, petit poste, is right there to help save them, or at least guide them towards that new phase of their existence? I think I know what I would want. So ideally, Red Bull should be waiting until around the summer break next year to assess whether or not Isack is ready to go. Because if the timing is right and Max does decide to leave Red Bull, then Hajar could end up being the team leader next to Liam Lawson, or somehow a surviving Yuki Tsunoda. But in any case, you just got to look at the story and be marveled that in just 9 races, Bayer trusts Isack Hadjar completely, coming from absolutely nothing. But Peter is genuinely worried that this instant promotion philosophy will only just send Isack Hadjar packing, just like how it sent Liam Lawson back to their doors with his tail between his legs. That handcuffs quip translates to, let him learn properly. The team will do anything in its power to keep Isack around as long as possible. They've got his back, much like how they had Yuki's back when the time was right for him to be promoted. The senior team wasn't receptive, so therefore VCARB would support Tsunoda's assertion that the whole thing was a bit weird. They were right behind Tsunoda in his belief. And if management does heed the warning, Hajar will be much more likely to arrive as a much more complete, battle-ready racer, rather than another casualty where folks will either go, oh, well, there goes another one, same old, or go, I knew it! Isack was a fraud! Or, oh, damn, Checo was right. You see what I mean here? The media seems to have an angle for all occasions or something. Also, the whole Hajar situation is probably a really perfect indicator that Racing Bulls has managed to outspin the spin doctor of Christian Horner. Because Racing Bulls, in the space of not even 18 months, has managed to re-establish itself as a really good, solid junior conduit, with many more junior drivers coming through its doors with incredible credentials, because you've now got Hajar, who was a sleeper hit, we're going to be having Lindblad in, he's going to be doing numbers for this team in 2026 at the very least. I don't think that Racing Bulls is the problem anymore. Does this put the onus to change on the senior team? Is there more responsibility on Red Bull Racing and Christian Horner to change? Well, yeah. Now, just make me make this clear. This is not a Red Bull hate piece. This is just talking about where the senior team lies within the whole Red Bull Junior ecosystem. Now, you would argue that it's not the team's responsibility to be that nurturing. They should be ready to go, right from the start. Well, when you consider that all three of its rivals have recent examples of thrusting in youngsters and giving them room to breathe, Leclerc with Ferrari, Piastri with McLaren, and now what we're seeing with Antonelli and Mercedes, because there are rumours he's going to be getting a 4-year deal after this season, so that is a textbook definition of long-term these days in Formula One, then Red Bull just looks like a complete and utter outlier rather than part of the contemporary fold. So the argument that Red Bull has absolutely no responsibility to nurture its younger drivers, it's becoming a moot argument. Because the revolving door philosophy has become a philosophy that just simply hurts young drivers. And we've seen this go all the way back to the likes of Danny Kvyat. If you really want to go back all the way, you could go back to the likes of Robert Dornbos, Vitantonio Liuzzi, Pierre Gasly, Alex Albon, so many names have come around the door in the second Red Bull seat, and they just leave a much weaker force. Either them having to rebuild or they just don't. Racing Bulls is showing the talent pipeline works, yet when those same drivers step up to Milton Keynes, they face a car tuned almost entirely to Max. Public scrutiny from Marco and Horner, and the very recent precedent of risk of demotion after only a handful of races. 2 in the case of Liam. The constant threat of demotion from all circles just makes young racers defensive rather than experimental. There's no room for the youngsters just to experiment, find their feet, find their style. As we saw with Lawson, Marco was basically telling him, you know your place, just sit down in the car, don't worry about development, and just be as fast as Max, even though you're not allowed to do these things, and you should be fine. And whereas Kimi in Mercedes was yes, Kimi, get yourself in the car, we'll put the red carpet, we'll give you a nice glass of hot cocoa, just make yourself at home. The two philosophies were just chalk and cheese. The process of sending drivers in and then sending them right back out again, it's become so routine, the media is just waiting for it to happen. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that is something Red Bull should not be allowing to happen anymore. So Horner has to change the entire team's philosophy. They have to be more patient. They need to have a technical team which is willing to extend the operating window and try out different things. Max is such a generational talent, he can make any car work. He could make a toaster go around the Nürburgring in under 10 minutes. The only way that bottleneck can be expanded is if they change the team completely and have a driver leading it with a management structure that isn't so heavy-handed like Verstappen's camp, and one that is purely Red Bull coded where they control the narrative. Enter Arvid Lindblad. Lindblad's newly granted super license does 2 things. It frees him from age and points constraints, and it removes the final legal barrier, stopping Red Bull from putting him in an F1 car tomorrow. Whether it buys him time or speeds things up depends entirely on Red Bull's choices, not the license itself. Because right now, with a super license, Red Bull can basically do whatever they want with him. They can put him in the car for an FP1 session, even though youngsters without a super license can do it. They do get a super license point if they do 100 kilometers incident-free, but it means he can do more things, including Pirelli tyre tests, which are a little bit more intricate and allow more time in up-to-date machinery. He can also serve as either Racing Bull's or Red Bull's reserve driver. It means that he can be fully ensconced in the environment of a Formula One team and, of course, get some valuable time in the simulator as a reserve driver. And he can do all of that without having to leave Formula 2. But this really depends on whether or not Red Bull is willing to wait and allow Arvid to fully immerse himself within the Red Bull culture. Or they are simply too tempted and they stick him in a car this year. Because they can, in theory, do that. You know what? I'm just going to get the spanner, and I'm going to get the foam here. I really wouldn't be surprised if we get an announcement of, Arvid to race in Racing Bulls, or Red Bull itself. I don't know anymore. Granted, the team have come out and said it's either going to be Isack or Liam that will get the call-up should Max be banned, and that Ayumu will step in at Racing Bulls, but I think that was all said before Lindblad got the official papers. Could that plan change? Especially since the F2 calendar becomes a little more sparse in the second half of the year. As has been the crux of this very video, Bayer has been warning the senior team to avoid rushing young prospects, and Lindblad is the biggest prospect the entire Red Bull group has at the moment, even bigger than Hajar. Hajar with a surprise quantity. Arvid, no. They know exactly what his potential is. And the team has shown many times in its history that if there is an opportunity that comes along, they act really quickly. So it wouldn't be surprising if Horner just acts without heeding the words of Bayer. Even though the reason why Bayer was hired was to make sure that the second team was as profitable as possible, and that was the edict of Horner, so Peter's only doing his job that Christian was telling him to do. But yeah, the way the super license is enacted, it really depends on what Red Bull does. Does it decide to just pull Arvid out of F2 and just get him straight to work in the simulator 24/7? Or does it allow him just to see out the rest of this season, especially since he is on a hiding to something? He's not floundering around in the mid-pack like Antonelli was last year because Prema really dropped the ball with the brand new F2 car, whereas Campos this year, oh no, they're absolutely on it, because you only have to look at the standings, and Arvid is only 9 points away from leading the championship. He is currently in 3rd place. But then at the same time, it could provide double the evidence for the senior team to just go, well, what's the point of waiting around then? Just get him in the car right now, because he would have so many points to his name. He would have even more super license points than the likes of Antonelli. And if there's one thing that Christian will want to do, is to get one over Toto. But I will give you a damn good reason why you should be keeping Arvid in F2, Maladio. Staying put in F2 would allow Lindblad the chance to chase the championship all the way to the end, in the second highest tier of single-seater motorsport, to polish up tyre management in slightly more relevant machinery to F1, and build leadership skills. And he has clearly become Campos' lead driver, leaving his teammate Pepe Marti for dust, much like how Hajar left Marti for dust last year. And the fact that the FIA granted this waiver underlines how exceptional Lindblad's junior resume is, and how much influence Red Bull still wields, but it doesn't override the cultural question inside the senior garage. Will they nurture or will they hurry? Arvid's already done his part to justify his case for Formula 1. It's now up to Red Bull to justify its part in the entire bargain and give him room to breathe. Treat the next 18 months for him as an extended apprenticeship, rather than making it all about assessing him exactly whether or not he is cut out for Red Bull, and if he's not, I'll just throw him to the lions again. So maybe give him 2 seasons at Racing Bulls, like how we should be giving Hajar 2 full seasons at the very least. But then about these 2 seasons, that might be pointless anyway, because you've only got to look at what Yuki Tsunoda's going through. He's been at that junior team for 4 seasons, and he's still struggling at Red Bull Racing. Patience doesn't afford a driver a single thing once the Verstappen-centric model takes over at the senior team again. Something's got to change up there, or else Hajar and Lindblad are going to be suffering from the same problems. And it's not like Tsunoda sucks or anything. Max Verstappen rates him both as a driver and as a friend. He recently described him as someone who is not a pancake, that's a Dutch term for someone who's inept, and he knows what Tsunoda is capable of. He sees what Hajar can do in that car. That's the point. Verstappen has already spelled out to the world and the team that the issue is not to do with the drivers, it's to do with the car. The car that is built around him and shows no sign of straying away from that model, since that's all the team has got right now in trying to keep Max around. It was clear that Yuki Tsunoda was ready for the challenge. He thought he was ready for the challenge, but he had absolutely no idea what he was letting himself in for, because he knows the tricks of the trade with Formula 1. He's been around for nigh on 100 Grand Prix, and he's still sinking. What makes people so sure that Isack would also not sink? He would probably sink even faster. And it's at this point where Christian Horner's comments of the team being, a bit of a pressure cooker, almost comes off as a bit sadist. Like, they have all of this junior talent, and then when they get to the top, they're expected to perform instantly, or else they face the chop. It just gives off the impression that all of this brand new talent has to match Max Verstappen immediately, or at worst, be 3/10 slower, but no more. But 3/10 slower than one of the greatest talents that we have currently in Formula 1? That's still amazing. I would kill to be 3/10 slower than Max Verstappen. And when they're not, all of the mistakes become really high-profile big news, comments and videos are made, including videos like these, and the cycle repeats itself again. And the whole talk about Max's future, these headlines happen as much as often as the second-seat Red Bull curse and Red Bull Junior drivers. So the time for Red Bull to act and do something about this is now. Whatever happens, Verstappen would go, and Red Bull would be left with a car built around a ghost, and Junior's unfamiliar with anything else. Right now, there's no clear proof they can design without him. Despite the promises to cater to Tsunoda when he rose up to the second seat, the signs are pointing to Vacher's technical team welching on that promise, save for perhaps some cheaper and slightly more intricate setup tweaks afforded to Yuki around Canada. It could help him at least a little bit, but it's no fundamental change to the second RB21 that was afforded to him just a couple of months ago at his home race. Was that just lip service? Well, I mean, it's looking more likely that yes, that was the case. And the day that Verstappen goes could just prove how narrow the philosophy has become at Red Bull. They'd be left without some sort of guidance. Any driver there will be left completely floundering, not knowing what to do. And if you had 2 youngsters there, or 2 drivers who had absolutely no compatibility with Verstappen's style whatsoever, then I wouldn't be surprised if Red Bull finds himself cast to the midfield for at least a couple of seasons while they rebuild. allowing for one of the current midfield team drivers to step up and become a front-running leader. Perhaps maybe Williams if they get the philosophy and the regulations right. But needless to say, Racing Bulls have kept up their end of the bargain. They have once again become the absolute bastion for all of the Red Bull Junior drivers, that they've got somewhere to go within Formula One that will look after them. And ideally, look after them for at least a couple of seasons to really find their feet and fully understand what it takes to build and develop a car. Which is why they should not be just there for one singular season, because they won't understand the process. Allow Hajar to be there for 2026 to understand the regulations in relative peace, get the full widget of Formula One before they become part of the front-running pack. If there comes a point where they are learning at Racing Bulls and Red Bull Racing themselves are struggling somewhat, then it wouldn't really surprise me if other teams do come a knock-in, because I'm pretty sure that other teams are quite interested in Hajar. So next year's reset has to be a clean slate, that they do have to build the RB22 to other drivers that aren't Max Verstappen, that they have to trust Verstappen in that he can drive just about anything, so long as it's well balanced. They need to build a car that any top rookie can drive if they're slotted into it at a short notice. Or, they can keep gambling with points and relying on Max again. I'm pretty sure he's thrilled at that prospect for the nth time. Racing Bulls has done its homework. Now the flagship team has to do the same before the bell rings on a new era. It's clear that Arvid's going to be the squad's iteration of Kimi Antonelli, so they've got to go through the effort of making sure that he learns properly and slowly and steadily amongst the F1 ecosphere, to show a sign of long-term commitment. Red Bull Racing has to prove their seriousness, because Racing Bulls are proving how serious they are, so Christian, you're letting the side down, mate. Because look what Peter Baer and Lauren Mekis are doing with their surprise find. Much like how I think Gabriel Bortoletto may end up being a surprise find for Audi. Despite being near the back, the Brazilian is slowly starting to prove to the world he is worthy of being in F1, as much as the man he beat in F2. To find out why I think Gabi is one to look at, watch this video next, straight after this one.